What if one cruel sentence could destroy a perfect relationship in seconds? Tonight's story takes you inside a glamorous New York charity event filled with wealth, power, and appearances. A billionaire, his elegant fiancée, and a quiet maid's little daughter standing in the corner unnoticed. Until one humiliating comment changes everything. But what happens next will shock you. A single moment of disrespect turns into a powerful lesson about dignity, humanity, and true worth, proving that kindness will always matter more than status. If you enjoy emotional, powerful stories with meaningful twists, don't forget to share, and subscribe for more amazing content. Now let's get started. The Grand Ballroom in New York shimmered with crystal chandeliers and soft violin music, filled with influential guests dressed in designer gowns and tailored suits. Billionaire Daniel Hayes moved gracefully among them, ensuring everything at his charity event ran perfectly. Across the room, his fiancée, Victoria, stood with a glass of champagne, basking in attention and admiration. Near the edge of the hall, almost invisible to everyone, stood the maid with her young daughter, a small girl dressed in simple, slightly worn clothes, holding tightly to her mother's hand. The child's white eyes wandered across the dazzling room, taking in a world so different from her own. She wasn't causing trouble, just quietly observing her innocence, untouched by the judgments around her. But Victoria noticed her gaze lingered, then narrowed, a hint of disdain forming on her lips. She leaned toward a group of guests, her voice just loud enough to carry, "Look at her cheap clothes. Does she even belong here?" she said with a mocking laugh. A few guests forced uncomfortable smiles, unsure how to react. Others looked away, pretending not to hear the words. However, struck sharply. The little girl froze, her small fingers tightening around her mother's hand. She lowered her head, her earlier curiosity replaced with quiet shame. The maid's face flushed with embarrassment, but she remained silent, afraid to speak out in such a powerful setting. Across the room, Daniel paused mid-conversation. The laughter and music seemed to fade as Victoria's words reached him. His expression shifted, suddenly calm, but with a growing seriousness in his eyes. Without saying a word, he turned his attention fully toward the scene, sensing that something far more important than the event itself had just unfolded. Daniel's polished shoes echoed softly against the marble floor. As he crossed the ballroom, the quiet authority in his stride, drawing subtle attention from nearby guests. Conversations faded one by one, replaced by a tense curiosity. He stopped beside the little girl, who still stood with her head lowered, her grip tight around her mother's hand. For a brief moment, Daniel's expression softened. He knelt down, bringing himself to her level, his voice gentle enough to cut through her fear. "Hey, look at me," he said quietly, hesitantly. The girl lifted her eyes. Daniel offered a small, reassuring smile, one that held no judgment, only kindness. He adjusted the sleeve of her dress slightly, as if it were something valuable rather than something to be mocked. Then he stood, turning slowly toward Victoria. The warmth in his face disappeared, replaced by a calm, controlled firmness that commanded the entire room. "She belongs here more than anyone who disrespects others," he said, his voice steady but carrying. Across the silent hall, a ripple of shock passed through the guests. Victoria's confident posture faltered, her smile fading as she realized every eye was now on her. "Daniel, you're misunderstanding," she began, but he raised a hand, stopping her. "No," he replied, his tone colder. "Now I understand perfectly." Without hesitation, he slipped the engagement ring from his finger and placed it on the nearest table. The soft clink echoed louder than expected. Gasps spread through the crowd. "I won't build a future with someone who measures worth by appearance," he added. Victoria stood speechless, her pride crumbling in the silence. Meanwhile, the little girl looked up again, this time not with fear, but with a small returning smile. As the room absorbed a lesson no one would forget.